All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the Perrysburg Board of Education meeting on Monday, October 21st, 2024. Mr. Drewier, can we have roll call, please?
Ms. Roland Miller.
Here.
Ms. Minke. Dr. Reffert.
Here.
Mr. Bennington.
Here.
Ms. Larimer.
Here. Sorry.
Went last to give you a chance to sit down.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to start with a safety briefing. Perrysburg Schools welcomes you to the Commodore Building, and we thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education meeting. We care about the safety of our students, staff, families, and guests. Please note that there are exits on both the east and west sides of the cafeteria. In case of an emergency, an AED is located just outside the cafeteria doors. You are located at 140 East Indiana Avenue. Thank you for joining us tonight and supporting Perrysburg Schools. Next, we have an agenda in front of us with a recognition, superintendent's report, and some treasurer's report, some consent business. Can I have a motion to accept that proposed agenda?
So moved. Second.
Dr. Reffert and Ms. Roland Miller. Roll call, please.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Ms. Roland Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, the agenda is adopted. So next item on the agenda is our recognitions. So Mr. Haas, we have a guest with us tonight. I'll let you take it from there.
All right, thank you. This evening, we have a program that we've started back in, I believe, 1985. I think as Mr. Source-Miller makes his way to the podium, a familiar face here, Paul Dodge with the Exchange Club from Perrysburg is here, and to talk a little bit about this program. And we're very grateful for the Exchange Club's support. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Source-Miller.
Good evening. For the past 39 years, since 1985, Perrysburg Schools has offered a program centering on difficult and dangerous situations, more specifically, physical and sexual abuse. The Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center calls it the Child Abuse Prevention Program, or CAP. For those in past years, it used to be called SAP, but we've evolved to their terminology. Our district provides this program for two reasons. First, we're complying with state requirements, and second, we believe that it is an important educational program for the safety of our students. CAP is a two-part problem-solving and personal safety program that helps children to recognize abusive situations and to feel comfortable in sharing their concerns with parents and/or other trusted adults. Lessons are taught in our classrooms through digital media, discussions, artwork, presentations, and role-playing. The goal is for students to become aware of their family supports and community supports. Mrs. Karen Schrock, a Perrysburg resident, has again been slated to coordinate the CAP program this year. Mrs. Schrock retired from the junior high in 2015 as a sixth grade math teacher, but she graduated in 1984 from BGSU with her master's degree in guidance and counseling, and a year later began as an elementary counselor here in our district. She has participated in CAP training provided by the staff at the Children's Resource Center in Bowling Green, as well as the Family and Child Abuse Prevention Center in Toledo. We're extremely fortunate and grateful to have our CAP efforts supported again by the Exchange Club of Perrysburg. Through generous donations of the Exchange Club has provided the support needed to make this program a foundational offering for Perrysburg students. Here, as Mr. Hosser said, is Mr. Paul Dodge. Mr. Dodge, we, because we put our heads together and we were guessing that we probably have been supported by the Exchange Club for 20 plus years of those 39. So we are very, very grateful to have our old friends come back and see us.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz-Miller. Mr. Superintendent, members of the board, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to be here tonight. The Perrysburg Exchange Club is pleased to continue the support for this very important program. that's provided for the children of the Perrysburg school system. It also aligns with not only the local Perrysburg Exchange Club, but also the National Exchange Club and one of our key programs, and that is prevention of child abuse. So it ties right into that, and it gives us an opportunity to continue to support that program. So on behalf of the Perrysburg Exchange Club Foundation and all the members of the Perrysburg Exchange Club, I would like to present this check for $2,500 in support of the CAP program. Mr. Schwarzbauer?
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever seen her wear flat shoes.
Yeah, I've seen them.
I need to fit between you two.
We have Mr. Dodge, on behalf of the Perrysburg School Board and the district, thank you and the Exchange Club very much for the gracious check and for the continued partnership with the district. Very much appreciated.
so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have another recognition. It is not often that we as board members are able to or take the time to recognize one of our own, but that's exactly what we're going to take a few moments to do tonight. Mr. Hosser can speak to it better than I can, so Tom, why don't you do the honors?
Certainly. So there is a program with the Ohio School Board Association, and it's pretty challenging. The bar is pretty high to accomplish all the things that are required of it, and it is something that Ms. Larimer has been working diligently, just not intentionally, but just doing the work and spending some extra time getting involved. And there's one component to their STAR program, which is asking for a recognition, which we are recommending to the board this evening. So once that is completed, then we'll wait to hear from OSBA and certainly being recognized for the STAR Award as a prestigious honor. So in the 18 years I've been here, this will be the first board member that has completed that. So that's quite an accomplishment. So, yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate this from all of you. I really do. I've learned so much being associated with all of you, and all of you especially. The administrative team here, led by Tom, and the board members that I've had to work with and learn from, has been a true joy, has been a real joy. And my sister-in-law over the week, she asked me if I enjoyed working on the board, looking at me with great disbelief that anybody could enjoy being on a school board. And she's very politically involved. And I said, it's been one of my most favorite things in my entire life I've ever done. So I want to thank you guys, because I wouldn't have kept on going if it hadn't been for you and your tutelage and patience, lots and lots of patience with me as I try to learn. So thank you.
Well, Sue, having served with you for quite a while, you
As
certainly
he stresses that and dragged that out a
I
little
say
bit,
quite a while.
I noticed the change in cadence there.
chose my language purposefully there. You certainly exemplify what this award means. I did a little bit of research to see, because I wasn't familiar with it, and read through the resolution, and it certainly does signify kind of what you do, what your passions are, and what you represent, and the work you do for this district. I'm going to read the resolution real quick so that we can vote on it, because you have been a little presumptuous thanking us for it. We haven't voted on it yet. But
You're considering it. I thank you for the consideration. There we go.
there you go. Whereas Sue Larimer, a board member at the Perrysburg School District, has served the district with distinction, and whereas Sue Larimer has dedicated her time for the betterment of the students and community, and Sue Larimer has proven to be dedicated to the craft of board governance through her commitment to training, service, and governance skills. And whereas such measures have advanced student achievement in the district and improved the governance of the district, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Perrysburg School District nominates Sue Larimer for the Ohio School Boards Association's Recognition Award. So, having read that into the record, can I have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Dr. Reffert?
Second.
Ms. Rowland Miller? Roll call, please.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Abstain?
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, congratulations, Sue. Good luck
Thank
in
you.
getting the award.
Thank you very much.
I think we will move past the 5-minute break since we've only been in session for about 12 minutes.
We reserve the right
Yeah,
to
and
circle
I've
back.
only had 2 sips of this, so we're good.
Next on the agenda is public participation. It is my understanding we do not have anyone signed up for public participation this evening. So that leads us into item 6, the superintendent's report. Mr. Hostler?
All right, well, thank you. So what's great about October is the school year, in August is up and running and it's hectic, and September is still kind of working out the kinks of the system. And once we slide into October, there's kind of a crisp, cool air that you start to feel, and the nights start to be a little bit longer, days a little bit shorter. And it really feels like fall, and kids kind of settle back into a routine with school. Families are busy and their schedules have kind of worked themselves out, and we're fully into the school year. So October is really, I think, a great month, for those reasons. So fourth grade students at Woodland Elementary made cards for volunteers to help with to thank those that were helping with the hurricane and the rescue efforts. So, great to see jackets, reaching out and saying thank you to so many dedicated people in such a time of need. So Flint is our facility dog in training. So if you head over to Fort Meigs, you'll meet Flint. So he's undergoing the training, and we're certainly very grateful for him there. And so being a location where that is training, he's now the 3rd trainer that has been at Fort Meigs. So they have a great track record of getting students across, or their students, the dogs, across the finish line. So he's a lot of fun. This time of year, it's a very busy time for our transportation crew with all the different activities and all the different things that they do. I'm not part of that, but I was at an event, and so they said, "Hey, get up here and get a picture of us all." So, but I think it's just a great reminder that today there are field trips going out to different places, athletic events that were underway, and we've got a great team, and in that picture are some of the best. We have a dedicated crew, but certainly a fun crew, and they're there on a Friday night at a different school, and supporting the Yellow Jackets. National School Lunch Week at HPI. The theme this year was School Lunch Pirates, Find Your Treasure. So I think the students really enjoy when they get a chance to see, certainly their food service folks dressed up and doing that kind of fun activity. So that missing limb is not as a result of any kitchen accident. So I just want to be clear about that. So donuts with loved ones at the elementary schools, always an exciting time for families, and getting a lot of people to show up and be there and have some donuts, and that's pretty special. Today there was a leadership conference hosted by St. Francis, their 8th annual. We've sent students to that each year. So I think after the first year, the last 7 years, some really great speakers, keynote speakers, and then they offer breakout sessions for students. So it was great to see some of our students participating there. And there was...
Now, wait a minute. It says here that you were a speaker. What did you speak on?
So we...
Just tried to glide right over that.
Thank you. So they asked me if I would be a breakout speaker, and I talked about students not having to wait to become leaders. There's kind of a impression that, we have to wait till we're done with school and we have a job, and really becoming, active now. And so we talked about some things in the breakout session. What are those essential things that are critical for all high school students to participate in? What are those things? When you think about high school, you think about having a yearbook or your varsity letter jacket or sweater, and you think about going to dances. And then we talked about what are some of the barriers to students doing those things, and what can they do about that. So it was good. There was students from Ottawa Hills and Clay High School, in addition to Perrysburg and some of the other area private schools. So it was a good day. And we had our student council folks there, and so the Jacket Way Walkathon took place and was a huge success. Respectful, responsible, and ready. And funds raised in the walkathon went towards supporting those activities and recognizing students and incentivizing students to keep doing those things. Usually when you see an email and the subject is auditors, it raises your blood pressure. Sorry, Randy, but that's my reaction. But we just finished our 2023-2024 EMIS report. Auditors go in and look at EMIS is the most important, EMIS coordinator is the most important job that you've never really heard of in a school district. All of our state data flows through one person, and then she verifies those numbers and all the withdraw information and student enrollment information. We had an audit from the state, and everything passed, and it went very well. So it's really a team effort. Kathy Kronman is our EMIS coordinator, and she certainly relies on all of our building secretaries to do their part in making sure we have accurate attendance and enrollment numbers. And so we're very excited to do that. It's cross-country season, and so we had our two teams were NL champions, and it was great to see Walt Churchill out at an event just last month. And he's a big supporter of Perrysburg, a big supporter of cross-country and track and field. So he was hanging out with some of our runners down at BGSU for a meet that was there, and pretty exciting time. So Toth Playground becomes more inclusive, and Ryan Wickman and Wood County Plays really were instrumental in getting some equipment here to Toth, and just making it a space that is really inclusive to all students. So, and it was great. He said, we're happy to highlight the school's district's inclusiveness to help Wood County Plays promote the grant, and other schools can benefit. So, from the buildings, from the staff to the families, it's great to see them all working together. And so that's wonderful. The Jacket Way, junior high Jacket Way color run, apologies to those families that had the laundry there for the next day or two with that, but it's something that has become an event that all of our students look forward to, and it's a really positive way to incentivize great behavior and promoting the Jacket Way and what we do. Multi-generational band families, so we had alumni night, and I think the number of alumni who've been coming back and attending, I think, are a greater number than some of the bands that perform opposite us on most Friday nights, and so it's wonderful. They took a moment to kind of capture current students, recent alumni, and then their parents who might have been even further back graduating from Perrysburg High School. So it's certainly great to see that. I did, in talking to some of the families, you get to see some of the alumni year after year, and it was funny. Some of them were telling on each other, like, well, I practice. I know going in, I start to practice, and, I won't name names, but my spouse, he's not out there really working at it. So it's interesting to hear that. So they take it seriously. Homecoming Festival was just a great weekend for Perrysburg, all things Perrysburg, from class reunions and the parade, and of course honoring Jim Leland, class of '53. at the football game, and then again on Saturday, and just a terrific evening. And hats off to everybody who had a hand in making that event what it was. Jeff Abke and his staff, the school's foundation, just coordinating and making sure that everything was in place, and it was a beautiful, really beautiful weekend and events for all of us. The high school play Anne Frank is coming up, so that's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And I know board members look forward to that, as well as many community members. And so very, certainly as we get into the fall play, that kind of kicks off our theater programming for the year, and very excited to do that. We also have an opportunity on Saturday, October 26th, to help out the theater boosters by going to the Ultra Car Wash on Eckel Junction, and between 12 and 2 and 6 and 8. And there'll be some scary things that'll be happening at the car wash, so enter at your own risk. And it'll benefit 100% of the tips will go back to the theater, so that's a great way to help out. Not to be outdone by the high school, but the junior high is their musical, Aladdin, and those performance dates are the 14th, 16th, and 17th, and you can purchase tickets online there. So when you look at the kind of talent that we have at the high school level, you don't have to look any further than the junior high to see where those students really hone in on their skills. So this past Friday was Jackets Giving Back. So I know the board heard a presentation about it. Miss Susan Roan Miller was one of the volunteers, so thank you for that on her birthday. So what a way to spend a birthday, but volunteering with high school kids. So thank you for that. And I know that these are some things that we had students that were working in the buildings with other students. We had students that were working outdoors. Almost 400 students involved in a wide variety of activities across Northwest Ohio. So it's really a great day, and students seem to enjoy it. And we want them to make those kind of connections, with that. So this is Side Cut Metro Park, where there was a picture we didn't include where a large tree was cut down by some of our students, but I guess that was part of the plan. So when I first saw it, I was a little nervous, but
It was supposed to be cut down.
yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. It was an invasive tree, and they had marked them, and they were like, we'd like to tackle the big ones. So Mobile Meals of Toledo, and then at Fort Meigs Elementary, so you can kind of see the activities there. Cost-saving measures, I know there's been some, as we talk about getting into the swing of school, I think it's always great to kind of hit pause and talk a little bit about some of the cost-saving measures that we do, and we'll kind of break these up as we get into them. But just a few, a lot of people aren't aware that we share some non-public transportation with Rossford schools. That we have over 70 schools within a 30-minute radius of Perrysburg that we would be obligated to transport to, if challenged. And it's certainly nice to be able to partner with Rossford schools, and they take some of our students, we take some of their students, residents that is, and then head out to the different areas. So it is a benefit because we are able to cover more ground together and provide more service. We have our gifted services administrator is shared with Anthony Wayne, so that's something that we've done where we share our gifted director with Anthony Wayne schools, and that's something that certainly saves us money and really trying to find a way to make it work in terms of adding staff. The district-wide lighting and energy project, we're getting closer to that being done, and the transition from diesel to propane buses continue to be a huge cost savings for the district. Annual health and dental costs increase over the last 5 years is 5.3%. When you look at the national numbers of the increases in healthcare and the kinds of things that have happened to make that possible, certainly the We Care clinic taking that stress off of hitting, claims hitting our insurance. And also staff feeling that they have someone to go to and see, so they feel better and aren't waiting and putting things off, which we all know can lead to, unintended outcomes with health care. So all gas and electric purchases, we now are using a broker to help get the best deal on those. That's something that James, I know, has shared in operations, and the savings has been pretty remarkable. Moving some things in-house, district-wide fertilizing and weed control, that was something that we used to contract out. And we got our staff certified in that area to do those applications, and we pulled those in, which saves a lot, as well as paint and carpeting, again, trying to keep our costs down by having our staff do versus contracting out. Amazon-enabled purchasing for district offices, custodial supplies is something James has talked about in operations. And what it does is it allows us to compare multiple prices, and also looking at what Amazon could do in terms of cost. And so we're not locked into just one vendor for everything, but we're looking at specific orders and really doing a quick comparison in real time of what we have available to us for those purchases. So sometimes bulk is better, and sometimes it's doing a district-wide order and not going with a group of other districts, depending on the nature of that. I don't want to curse anything here, but snow removal and mowing we've pulled all those things and remain to keep those things in-house, and our staff really works hard. And you heard a little bit about that last week, the last board meeting, about the amount of acreage and parking lots and all those kinds of things that we cover each year with what we do. It takes us to the spending and performance pieces of this. And this is what is the relationship of the average spending per student to performance, and how does it compare to similar school districts? So you can see where the average is, in terms of the cost per pupil and the performance index. And of course, if you are in the upper left quadrant there, that is a good place to be, because that means you're spending less than the average of your peers. And it also means that you're achieving higher than the average of your peers. Perrysburg is the red dot that is there. And so we're among the highest, certainly in a really good spot in terms of being below the average of our peers. So that's something that we're proud of. So I want to go through a couple of things, just kind of what have we heard. I know there's lots of questions about the levy, and sometimes those questions get tentacles, and people have kind of questions that maybe aren't exactly with the levy, but we wanted to take a moment to kind of touch on those. So one of the things that we hear is, I really don't want to support the levy because people who live in apartments don't pay taxes. So we grabbed 4 different types of apartments, and we looked at the number of students that are coming from those apartments, the number of units, the taxable value in 2023, and then we looked at the half-year tax. And you can see that those apartments are paying, school district taxes. And so, so the answer to the question is, the owners of those properties are paying school district taxes, and that is more than likely considered to be part of the, the rent or the fees that they pay as residents there. And so I wanted to focus a little bit on care and aid. So we have 115 students there, 248 units. They're paying $170,000 a half. So on the surface level, and this really goes to with all the growth that happens in a community, what are you doing with all the money kind of a thing. So this is one of those areas, and another example, but 115 students. So when you think about 115 students, just to do an easy kind of math, but if you said that there were 25 students in a class, so that's roughly 4.5, 5 teachers, if they all were in the same grade. That would be about a bus and a half, 88 passenger bus. We'll pretend that they're all small and they all can 3 to a seat to get to 88. And then you think a number of those students might be special needs, with the percentage, and there will be a number there. And so you say, well, you're getting $170,000 a half, $340,000 a year. That's a lot of money, and it is. But I wanted to kind of flip to the next slide where we talk about, so we mentioned that it would be maybe 4 teachers, 5 teachers. Well, the starting salary for a teacher this past year was $42,000. Now, health insurance, retirement, things that we have to provide, the total cost of that teacher is $72,000. So that's retirement benefits and their salary combined. So when you say that 4 teachers with those students, you can begin to see how that $340,000 all of a sudden isn't such a big number. And we mentioned a bus driver. A starting salary is $30,000 a year. The retirement and benefits almost equal that. And so that's $58,000. And so if we had to hire an additional bus driver for that, you can begin to see where that amount of taxes really doesn't go far enough to cover those costs dollar for dollar. And then a custodian and secretary, you can see those kinds of things. I know there was something going around that we have custodians that make over $100,000 in the starting, and it's available online, the contract, but starting pay is $40,000 for a full-time custodian. So that I think is really important as we consider. One, those units do pay taxes. You can see, depending on the unit, how much they pay. And while we do get those dollars, which we're grateful for, the way that Ohio schools are set up, the way that the tax collection comes in, it doesn't really keep up with pace. And not only for multifamily, but also residential, which is why there's so many levies in Ohio that are on the books. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the real cost of the levy explained. So we have a levy that is set to expire at the end of this year, and that was passed in 2019. And right now, residents are paying $28.44 a month on that existing levy. And when the expiring levy is replaced on November 5th, and if it's successful, residents will continue to pay what they already are now, which is $28.44 per $100,000 of home value. So beginning in year 2, and going, for the next 7 years of this replacement levy, the additional maximum cost to homeowners will be $4.20 per month per $100,000 of value, an additional $4.20 per month per $100,000 for each of the following 6 years. So when we talk about this levy, we want to talk about the fact that we're focusing on that additional cost because residents are already paying what is set to expire. So that would roll over into this levy, and then we're asking for that $4.20 per $100,000 more beginning in year 2. So I think it's important to differentiate those two things because I think there's been some things that have been said about the cost, the additional cost of this levy, and they're factoring in that additional $28.44 per month per $100,000, which folks are already paying. So that people would not see that difference. So in year 1 of this levy, that would be $28.44. You'd still pay that. It wouldn't be an additional tax. So I wanted to kind of do this exercise here. So if you're making $50,000 a year, and we just showed that's more than one of our starting teachers make. So it's a salary that it gives you perspective that it's more than what our starting teachers make. And let's say for this exercise that you end up with $50,000, and for the next 8 years you get a 5% raise per year. So we kind of take this calculation. And you can see that in year 1, it's $52,000, in year 2, and so on. So at the end of this, when you add up the $50,000 salary and you calculate everything, That's over $500,000. Now, would you say, listen, you're getting a 5% raise a year, and in 8 years, you're going to have, it's going to be $500,000. That is an accurate statement. So what is that person going to do with that $500,000 that they're going to have? And that's during those 8 years, their salary is going towards their mortgage or their apartment, insurance, car payment, if they have student loans, groceries, clothes, supplies, healthcare costs. And if your family's growing, you're going to need additional funds to keep up with that. So at the end of those 8 years, that total cost isn't, you're not getting $500,000. You don't have $500,000 in the bank. Every single year, those dollars are out there paying for those expenses that you need to keep a roof over your head and food in the pantry and all those kinds of things. And so, so I want you to keep that in mind. Now, if someone makes $500,000 a year, and let's say that, I'm sorry, and let's say for a moment that their salary was reduced by 17%. So now they're going from $50,000 down to $41,000, and their total earnings over that 8 years would be $332,000. That's a $169,000 difference. That would be impactful to that person and what they are trying to do. So that's one of the things that I wanted to mention, those two things, as we get into the next slide. So when we hear things in the community about that this levy will cost taxpayers $164 million, let's kind of break that down a little bit, because the two exercises that I just showed you are kind of the counter to that. Because one, under the current levy, taxpayers are paying $13.5 million of that per year, 164. So 108 million is not additional new tax dollars. So that's like taking the $50,000 salary and saying, boy, you're getting this additional $50,000, this $500,000 at the end of 8 years. You're saying, well, wait a minute. No, I'm getting $50,000 a year, and then I'm getting a raise. That's the difference from year to year, is that raise. That's what the incremental levy is that raise. That base salary is already there. And what we're talking about, the difference, is that raise. And so for a home that's valued at $300,000, that additional, the raise to the person's salary, but that addition would be $12.60 a year. That's what we're talking about that first year, and then it would continue to go for the next 7 years, or next 6 years. And again, we covered that at the last board meeting in terms of as growth happens, there's that reduction. So I think it's very important to kind of keep that in mind. When you see that number, it's kind of shock and awe. And I don't know, someone described it as being a little bit misleading, because we're talking about money that is already baked into that. That's not new dollars. Those are dollars that are already there that we're replacing. What we are talking about is that additional, which all of a sudden, 108 minus 164, that increase looks a little bit different. And again, the one thing that we want to mention is if the levy goes away, the levy fails, that $50,000 salary is now $41,000. Kind of in this comparison. So that's where we are. So schools receive the biggest slice of the property tax pie is something that we've heard too. And so according to the Ohio Legislative Service Commission, which is a bipartisan arm that provides information to the legislature, Ohio School Boards Association said Ohio on average, this is a quote, 60 to 70% of property taxes go to public schools. So when you hear something like 69% or 68% or 64%, whatever it may be, and depending on where you live in the city or the townships, that number is going to vary. So the number that people are throwing around is actually the highest one, but that's a number. But it also is what is here in Ohio. Is that's the way that taxes are set up, local taxes, and the majority go to schools, and 60 to 70% on average. And Perrysburg falls in line with that. And so we pulled a handful. So we've got a couple area schools that are over 70%, and we've got a handful that are below 60%. And then we have a number that are in that 60 to 69%.
And Tom, I
Yep.
hate to interrupt you, you're on a
Yep.
roll. But we need to point out that of that 60 to 70%, almost all of it has been voted on. So this was not imposed. Over the years, taxpayers have voted for those things. So it wasn't legislatively driven. We get about, 10% of our local funding came from statutorial, what's built in the state charter, but not, everything else has been voted on by the taxpayer.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Randy. And so, again, you've seen this. There's 141 school districts that are on the ballot this November, and it has to do with what we talked about before, that legacy of House Bill 920, which doesn't allow us to continue to collect, when we have growth in the community in such a way that allows us to hire new staff, additional staff, and the bus drivers, and all the things that we need. That's 23% of Ohio school districts that are on the ballot. And so that's a function of what happens here in Ohio. We wanted to dive into administrative costs. So, right now our per pupil expenditure is $1,000 below the state average. And that's taking all of our students, it's taking all of our expenditures, and on the CUP report, it does break it down, and that's the, where we stand right now. The Perrysburg Schools administrator ratio is 154 to 1, so 154 students per one administrator. The state average is 119 to 1, and we are $172 per pupil below in spending on administration per pupil. So those are data points that you can research, you can look into, and you can look at. There was some talk about, well, you guys have accelerated your, tripled the amount of administrators that you have in this district. And I said, I don't remember us tripling that. So I went back and began to do a little digging. And in 2011, and I don't understand these numbers, but just kind of go over them. In 2011, our ratio administrator to pupil was 166 to 1. The FTEs, which is available online, was 27. So in 2011, we had one administrator for every 166 students. We had 27 administrators that were coded as administrators, and then the state coded them that way as well. And then in 2012, we went to 528 to 1 as a ratio, and we went from 27 to 8.8. Now, I don't know what happened with that calculation or what happened or what the coding was down in Columbus, but you can begin to see the next few years where it was 528 to 1, 374. And just for the record, in 2012, the number of we didn't have HPI at that time. We didn't have Union School, and we had 9 administrators in our buildings. So I'm not sure where that 8.8 came from, because just in our buildings, with 4 elementary principals, 2 junior high, 3, we were there. And then we saw in 2017, it went to 158 to 1, and it's 30.7. So there was kind of a correction that happened over those years. And so what happened between, 2011 and 2017, where we picked up 3 administrators, well, we opened HPI, so that's 2. And then Union Preschool moved from being Monday through Thursday church program that we were running in a church to what it is today. So that's where you get your +3. And then, from 2017 to 2023, we've added a little less than 3 administrators. And, and I'll talk about that. You've seen that slide, but we'll kind of break that down. But since 2011, we've added 1,017 students. which is larger than most school districts in the area, with their whole contingent of teachers and staff and all the things that we need, and administrators. But in the last 5 years, we've added 56 teaching positions to the district, new to the district, and you have kind of a breakdown. And we've added 3 administrative positions in that time. So when you think about 56 teaching positions, that's larger than Woodland or Fort Meigs. And, you know, in those areas where we've hired has been in operations, in terms of, you know, we think about our footprint and what it is. We've also added administrator in pupil services area, which we've seen an increase with special needs and that compliance component to it. And then the the high school, an additional assistant principal. So our high school is, I think, larger than most school districts across the state of Ohio. You know, K-12, our high school is bigger. So that's the area. So, you know, when you go back and kind of trace, you know, boy, you guys have tripled. We haven't, because I can guarantee from 2011 to 12, we did not reduce from 27 to 8.8. That didn't happen. And then when we have grown, we have been able to explain exactly where those came from and why. So if we were just, you know, increasing administration left and right, here it is, going back. And by the way, we've added over 1,000 students in that time. So we've added lots of teachers and opened a new building. And we've hired administrators to go with that because they've been needed. So I think that continues to be it. I know one of the other things that has come up is about, you know, residency and superintendent residency. And so first of all, the contract that I have now with the Board of Education doesn't require me to live in Perrysburg. And under Ohio Revised Code 9.481, it prohibits from employees being required to live in a certain place. So the benefits of having that is it attracts more applicants possibly, and it reduces the relocation challenges that come with moving in those positions. So this isn't a I don't want to live in Perrysburg kind of moment for me. And so I'm going to talk a little personally here because people have made it personal, frankly. And so after 18 years of serving in the district, you know, I want to kind of just remind folks of where that was. So going all the way back when I was married first in 1992, we lived in South Toledo. I was teaching at a Catholic high school, and we were working hard to save money, which was pretty hard to do as a Catholic school teacher. And we bought our first home as a married couple, and we bought it here in Perrysburg. And we were excited to be here. And 2 of our 4 children were born here and baptized just a couple blocks away. And as our family began to think about, you know, growing and what our priorities were as a family, it was my wife's desire to begin to spend more time at home. And for us to do that as a family, I knew I needed to look for a job that would begin to make those kind of financial changes. So I took a principal's role up in the Irish Hills. Every day I drove 178 miles from Perrysburg to my work and back. Wow. So that lasted a little over a year. And I said, you know, we need to get closer. As a high school principal, a lot of evening events, and with kids that were young and getting a little older, we needed to be closer. So we ended up moving to Sylvania. And so I was a principal, became a superintendent in Michigan. We stayed in Sylvania. And then in 2007, I got hired as the superintendent here at Perrysburg. And we were very excited about that. My daughter was heading into her freshman year in high school, was going to start high school. What a great time to start new. And so over that summer, she tried out for the Perrysburg cheer team and the Perrysburg dance team. We have pictures of her in her Perrysburg uniforms. And as soon as I got the job, I called a friend from high school, put a for sale sign in our front yard, and we were all set. Except if you recall what happened in 2007, the housing market, the bubble just popped, it crashed, and the house sat. And it sat, and school started for my daughter. And at that time, Perrysburg, to this day, doesn't have open enrollment. So it was impossible for me to enroll my family here or any family here that didn't live inside the district. And so we lowered the price, and another year went by, and we lowered the price to the point where if we went any lower, we'd be upside down, and that's not where we wanted to be as a family, to move 13 miles closer. When my daughter ended up getting to be junior, senior year, my son now freshman, sophomore year, I give my kids a reason to be mad at dad virtually every day. And one of the things I didn't want to do as dad is pull them out of their junior year, senior year in high school. And so I went to the board and said that, and we were very, very grateful. The board said, we get it, we understand. So the Great Recession, and that's just kind of, what's happened. In those 18 years, I know, what's happened, and so I think things have changed a lot in the world of superintendents, where you'd have a superintendent that was a teacher and then became a principal in the district and then would stay on as superintendent and retire. And that's not how it is anymore for a variety of reasons. In Northwest Ohio, just very quickly, there's a number of districts where those superintendents don't reside in their communities for a variety of reasons. And then, in terms of tenure, since 2007, you can kind of see some of the tenure of some of the area districts in terms of, that turnover with superintendent's positions. So it's a job that, I've taken very seriously. I say this and I mean it, and tonight's another example where I live in Perrysburg and I sleep in Sylvania. And that's kind of how we've operated in the last 18 years. But at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with what our students need here in the district. It has nothing to do with what this district needs to move forward. And, and that's the history there. So can the district stop growth? And the answer to that is no. With all the new homes and businesses that come to Perrysburg, don't we get a lot more money? Not a lot more money, not enough. And because of House Bill 920. Our Perrysburg Schools property tax is the highest in the region. They're not. And will we continue, we continue to achieve above average results and spending below the state average? Yes, that's true. There's one stat that nobody can argue with, because I know there's been, well, if you take this from the CUP report and you take this from here and the state report card and you do this and you include the money that's people are already paying, and you get into all the numbers. And as you talk about all those things, and one thing you don't talk about are students. The students that we're here to serve. The students that, that I'm excited about every morning when I wake up to do the work that I do. It's because of those students. And when we talk about those things, we kind of lose sight of what we're really talking about. And what we're really talking about is our ability to continue to maintain what we're doing. 17% goes out the door if the levy fails. And that will have a huge impact on us. So if the levy fails, the district will lose $13.5 million each year until something happens to replace that. Nobody can debate that. That is a fact. And if you accumulate that over the life of the levy, that's $108 million the district will not collect if nothing happens. So that is where we are. And that loss would be immediate. The incremental levy goes up a little, nothing the first year, a little bit the next year, a little bit more. And all the while, we've covered it. We've had the pizza slide and everything where it doesn't quite go up as fast as or as much as what people are being told, because growth will happen in the community like it has before. But a levy loss, that comes all at once. Starts on January 1. And that's where we are. And so what's frightening is we kind of get into these things that I just covered, a lot of those things, and we need to bring it back to what we can agree on. And what we can agree on is that will negatively impact our students. It will. And the loss of $13.5 million, that will happen. And the incremental levy over time, people will feel that a little bit each year. This is a cliff. So it's just kind of, where we go from here and, and what's at stake. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time clarifying some information and just getting us, thinking about some of those questions, and hopefully people will have their questions answered. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hausler. Thanks for keeping your ear to the grind, or your ear, well, to the ground, your nose to the grind, your ear to the ground, and hearing and continuing to get those facts out there. I guess also say congratulations, into October, how you opened your presentation. It is, from my perspective, I can't imagine it's like a duck swimming. The feet are paddling below the water, but myself as a board member, it sure looks like it's been a great start to the school year. The typical, I'm sure they're there, but the host of issues that usually happen, busing and lunchrooms and coordination and all of that, this has been a much smoother start than I can recall. Yeah. And I put that I give a lot of credit to the administrators and the teachers that all come together, and the OPSI and all the staff that are working hard to make all that happen and make it happen as well as it is. So I'll turn over for any questions or any comments from any other board members on the superintendent report. Okay.
I'm just gonna, one of the things that because there's been so much discussion about out in the community about our, the revenue and our expenses and that comparison and where we sit on that. And so what I did, I maybe went a little too deep, but I like spreadsheets. I spent a lot of time looking at our 20 comparable districts. And that was the similar districts, that graph on, I think it was slide 20. And I went into the numbers a little bit more because I think I just really wanted to have a better handle on what I was hearing and where, are we too expensive? Are we overstaffed? Are we things like that? And what became really clear to me as I looked at just comparing ourselves on every single metric to our similar districts was that we are similar, and I'm going to call anything similar if we were within 5% of whatever the benchmark was. So if this cost $5,000, that we were within 5% of that $5,000. And so that would be similar to me. We were, slightly above, slightly below. We were similar in almost every metric. The size of our school to our 20 other similars, our administrative costs and our pupils. So I know there's questions about comparing us to the whole state. Compared to our similar districts, we are right there. We're where our other similar districts are. And these are districts that also scored, they all received 5 stars, 4.5 stars or 4 stars. So they're also high-performing districts. The income that comes to us from property taxes and our income tax is almost equal in that similar group. We're within 5% of what the average was for that group. Our state income, what we receive from the state, similar, within 5%. Our total revenue, because it's slightly different depending on each school, but our total revenue was similar. And the percent of our budget to each type of expense, so how we're spending our money, is right in alignment. The difference is that we were actually, and I'm going to say we were right at 5%, our cost per pupil is below our similar district average, so it's not just state average, but also that similar district, by $825. We're below. So not as much by the state. I know, again, there's those comparison of what we're providing, but these are folks that have the same general amount of poverty level, that have different English language learners, things like that. What was also, though, really different was that the income for our area is lower than most of our similar districts. There certainly are districts below ours, but on average, our income is lower, our property valuation is lower, and therefore, and I think this is what we hear, that tech's effort is slightly higher than our similar districts. And I think that that's where we feel it. We know that supporting quality education that our students receive maybe takes us a little bit more from our budgets, but it's not drastic. It's just outside that 5%, but our effort to provide our students a quality education is taking us a little bit more. It's taking even more from some of those similar districts. And so I really wanted to find, like, where is it that we could cut? What is the bottom line is, I kind of, after spending too much time perhaps doing this, was that this is where we're back at, it's a choice, is do we want to continue to provide the quality education that we are providing our students right now, or are we willing to cut significant amounts of money knowing that we will not be providing that quality education anymore? And so I guess all to say that I couldn't find the big difference, except we're still wealthier than the majority of the districts in our state, but in our similar districts, we're having to push a little bit harder. But again, there's districts pushing even harder than us. So I'm happy to share this spreadsheet with anybody. But this is, I really came back to, this is a choice about quality education or not. So I just wanted to share that.
That was some great information.
Yeah, thanks.
I just have to say that I love seeing all of the positive and the highlights in that, in the presentation that highlights what Perrysburg is. You know, you see it's all about the kids, it's all about what's going on with the students, it's all about creating those relationships. You know, what I find, and I don't know if I'm just appalled, honestly, that you have to explain why you don't live in Perrysburg. I'm just shocked. And I appreciate that, because most of us know the why, but unless people work in education or they're a school leader, they have no idea what happens in a school district. I've had my superintendent certificate for 16 years, since 2008. I have zero desire in today's political climate to become a superintendent. And as you know, Mr. Hostler, we met when my Lucas started kindergarten, and I did a deep dive into your background before, because I was not very thrilled with the superintendent prior to you. And I wanted to make sure that you were here for the long haul and did everything that you could possibly do. And right out of the get-go, you immediately started with parent focus groups, getting to know everybody and getting to know all the kids and what the issues are with the parents. And fortunately, I was one of those. But you're well respected across the state, not just in the area, in the state. And I guess what's so upsetting as an educator and as a community member and as a school board member is people, not all, a fraction of the community don't understand that. And as you know, the silent majority understand. And I appreciate all you've done in the 18 years, and that's a long haul for a superintendent. 18 years, and we always, 18, it is. And I guess I'm just tired of the blizzard of BS that we're hearing. I'm just calling it as it is. It's BS. People are not taking the time to find the facts. Facts are not found in social media. I'm gonna say it again and again and again and again. It is not found in social media. You need to go to the website, you need to go to the source, and just because somebody says it on social media doesn't mean it's true. So I appreciate all this information. I appreciate that people have taken the time to read this and find the information. And as I've said many times, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts. And this is about students. Right, it's down to students. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's about the kids. So if somebody has a beef with you as a superintendent, or a beef with another administrator or concern, it's a shame that they're gonna take it out on the kids. It's a pure shame. And I'll say it till the day I die, it's a shame.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rufford. I also share kind of that, the indignation on that point, because at the end of the day, I'm an efforts and a results guy. And are you put it in the effort, and are you getting the results? And I drive by this building every day on my way to my job, and I know what Mr. Hosser drives, and I know that he's here when I'm headed out, and he's here when I'm coming back. So the effort's there, and then again, the results that we hear time and time again about what a strong performing district this is, the chart that's up there. Higher performance, lower cost, the results are there too. So what your zip code is hasn't mattered to this board, hasn't mattered to boards prior for over a decade, probably longer, and it'll continue to not matter.
Agreed, and it certainly doesn't matter to our students.
That's right, most importantly.
You know, I think that I appreciate you, Dr. Rever, bringing us back to the students again, because I think that's one of the, you know, I've heard about the reduction list, that it, you know, this kind of weird sway back and forth, you know, it doesn't impact the students really at all, so what difference does it make versus this impacts the students, why would you do this? And my answer has been every reduction impacts students. And I never had thought about this before, even I was an economics major in undergrad, and had never really thought like what our product is. The product is students prepared for their future and meeting their highest potential. And the only real materials beside buildings which stand here to receive them are, you know, there's some curriculum costs, construction paper, but it's our teachers and it's our staff and it's the administrators who support them. And so any reduction to me is going to affect the students. It's going to affect that product that we're going to be cutting their productivity, their potential shorter. And so I just appreciate you bringing us back to the students again.
Well, you know, adding to that again, we talk about, yes, we have, 85% of our budget goes to salaries. Well, schools are people. We're in the people business. We're not in the car business. We're not in the grocery business. We are in the people business. We are creating and making and enriching people. Of course, our salary is going to be at 85%.
Yep.
It's expected. And when you start cutting those salaries, it's going to start affecting our kids left and right and the education and the quality that we provide in this community.
Okay. Ms. Hosser, thank you for your presentation.
Eric,
Yes.
Mr. Hostler, can you announce for the public when the next levy information session is?
Is that tomorrow?
Yeah, let me,
Tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night, 6:30 at Fort Meigs?
that sounds
If
right.
anyone has questions,
Yeah,
concerns,
please.
comments?
Yep,
Yeah, there was one held last week, correct? Last Thursday. And it was,
yeah. 6:30 at Fort Meigs, at the, in the school there, in the teacher's lounge at 6:30, so we'll be there. So thanks for that.
thank you.
22nd, right?
Yes, yep.
And that's a great reminder, because I really, back to Dr. Revert's point, I wish people would come and ask questions and not look to Facebook for the answers. Come tomorrow night and ask questions, please, please, ask questions.
Thank you for putting that out. Okay, Mr. Druyer, we're on to item 7, Treasurer's Report.
All right. Tom, get me queued up here. I will be fairly brief tonight. Just a couple of things real quick. If you noticed in the monthly financial report in the second page, I've added just a little brief narrative on, you know, kind of hitting some of the high points to the rest of that 70 pages or whatever it's in that tree I've killed. Well, if you printed it out, I guess we did print it out for the Finance Committee, so just to recognize. Let's talk, this is a slide I show every month, but I want to spend a little more time on it than I normally do because of that, the whole idea of facts and story and information. It's been brought to my attention that there's some discussion out there that the levy is not necessary because our cash balance is good and that we can live off our cash balance. And there's a reason why I show this slide every month, is that at the end of September, we ended up at almost $41 million, which is healthy. I'm happy with that balance. But I want to point out over the next 6 months, that'll drop by $2 to $4 million a month. So again, I want to emphasize, this district is funded, for better or worse, the fact is, by local property taxes, and we get 2 checks a year, in the late summer and in winter, late winter. And that in between that, we get our income tax quarterly, and we have some state funding, but it doesn't, those things on their own do not even cover payroll, right? Our payroll is about $4 million a month. So I just want to point out that, yes, we're healthy right now, but as you can see, that goes away. The other thing I want to point out, if you look at our peak last year, at the end of March, 1st of April, we peaked at a little over 32 million, almost 32.5 million. So picture that number, if the levy fails, then that's 6.5 million reduction right there. So that gap is immediate. And so when you look at a healthy cash balance, it goes away rather rapidly. So I just want to point that out. We show it, and I take it for granted that everyone's internalizing it as much as I do. But this is kind of how I look at how the district is run. It's not the big numbers. It's, come January and February are low points, are we able to pay our bills and make payroll? And it wasn't that long ago when this district was sweating that, and the folks came together and passed the incremental levy in 2019, because that's exactly where we were. So anyway, it's just the reality of the way our district works, and I don't see that really going away at this point. Any questions on that before I move into the up-to-date financials? Okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, just got a couple slides on the financials this month, because we're just kind of, the school year, as Mr. Bennington's pointed out, we're off to a good start. There's things that we have to do, but it's running, it's like a basketball game. You throw the ball on the court and the kids just play, right? We're teaching students, we're getting kids to schools, and we're paying the bills. So at the end of September, we had 188 true cash days, which is really nice. And year to date, our revenues are up 13% and our expenses are up 11.9. And I'll talk a little bit more about the expense side. Revenue is about where expected. Expenses were running a little bit ahead of where I'd like to see us. So on the earnings side, the only thing I really want to point out is our all other earnings, and our interest earnings continue to be strong. That is the benefit, obviously, of the cash balance and interest rates, while the Fed has made a 50 point basis point decrease. Earnings are still strong, and I'll come back and talk just a little bit more on some other slides in a different matter. On the expense side, as Dr. Repper pointed out, we're people business, salaries and benefits, and if you look, we're right on trend where we expect to be. We're 25% through the year, and we're spending about 23%. So we're just right on where I would expect at this point. There is a concern area, and that is, and when we talked about this last month a little bit, purchase services and supplies are trending well ahead of last year. They've narrowed back on trend, but there still is a spending gap there that we're watching very closely. And part of it is, in talking with Mr. Mapus today, and we know some of it is driven by some unexpected repairs, fire pump, things like $50,000, and that is just eating our lunch at this point, literally. But it's not an excuse at this point, and we're holding the line on maintaining a budget. But at some point in time, we're going to make decisions. You can't leave a bus unrepaired, those kind of things. But I'm just kind of putting it as a heads up. We recognize that gap and that trend is there, and we're managing to it. So, and we'll take we constantly look at our budget lines and go, is there budget lines that we're not using that we can move, and those kinds of things. I hope that makes sense. So through September, again, quickly, we're on trend. the big thing this week, actually, the state will recalculate our funding. So up to this point, our state funding's been based on last year's numbers. So when we get our foundation payment on Friday, we'll have a new calculation that will give us an idea of where we're standing, the impact of enrollment and, economically disadvantaged, all those things. All that EMIS data that Mr. Hostler referred to, it takes the state until the second payment in October for that to catch up. And so we'll have a better feel for where we stand on a state funding standpoint. So, and then, of course, expenses getting back on trend, but obviously I am still concerned. I want to, make sure that everyone knows that we don't take it lightly. People are frustrated a little bit with us sometimes because we say no, or let's talk about this, not an automatic yes. Shifting gears, if we're okay with that, I'm going to move on to the future a little bit, the past and the future combined. So, give you a little bit of background. Everyone knows getting ready, the bond issue for the high schools, getting ready to mature. We got one more year, and HBI bond issue, we are about halfway through that. And in December, we have a call date on those bonds. They're tax-exempt bonds, and in December, if we want to, we potentially could refund, which is like refinancing your mortgage. And so I asked our investment banker, where do we stand right now? So we're looking at this because in the end, what we want to do is, obviously, if we can get a lower interest rate, that benefits taxpayers, right? We can either move in how fast we pay the bonds off, or we could lower the payments depending on what strategy we take. Just like you refinanced your home, right? You could pay it off faster, or maybe if you want to continue to keep it spread, pay a little bit less. So what we have here, and this is a lot of numbers here, I'm not going to put you through all this. If you really want to go through all of it, we'll spend some hours on it, but I wouldn't recommend it for tonight. So at the current market condition, so right now we financed HBI at $38.9 million in March 2015. Currently, there's slightly less than $20 million left in bonds to be refunded. And if we refunded all those bonds, which we could, right now, today's interest rates, we would lose money. So essentially, we'd have a higher interest rate than we have now. So, but the question is, the Fed has reduced the Fed's rate by 50 basis points. What happens if it goes up or down? If they add basis points, it makes it worse, so we don't even want to consider that. But if they drop more basis points, what point in time does it make it a good idea to refund? And Tom decided that I've talked enough.
No, I don't know what happened.
While he's figuring that out, I'm just going to say, so if the Fed reduces basis points, so again, let's put it in English. They reduce 0.5%. I'm sorry. Okay, 50 basis points equivalent to 0.5% in interest. Then it really makes sense for us to refinance essentially all of those bonds. And we could do that. The nice thing is, come December, that window is open. So if in January or March or May, the interest rates drop far enough, we can refinance them anytime after February. So we're going to be watching this constantly, making that bet when the best time to refinance, to refund. Again, the whole idea is let's make the cost of capital cheaper for our taxpayers, right? Mm-hmm. So, but another possibility, and again, this is getting in the weeds a little bit, you don't have to refund everything. If we took our highest interest rate bonds and refunded them, let's see, one more slide. There we go. It's a little bit better than break even. If we have almost $20 million. If we refinance the highest $6 million, we'd be close to break. It'd be a break even. We'd save a few dollars, but not really worth the effort. And that's what that middle column says. Now again, if we get another 50 basis points, it becomes a no-brainer. So you don't have to refund all of it. You can some portion of it. That kind of deal. So that's kind of where we are. Just want to give a heads up that part of my job is to keep an eye on all these moving parts and pieces, and and this is one of them. So we're looking out to try to find ways, to reduce the cost of capital for our taxpayers. So, any questions on that? I know there's a lot there. I tried to put it in English, and if I didn't, I apologize.
No, that's all right. Isn't that something that we did, Eric, not too long ago, was this whole refunding?
Yes, we did some.
Yeah,
the high-
2020, 2021, sometime there was a refinance.
Well, we refund some since I've been here, so, in the spring of 2022. Because we sold the bonds on the day that Russia invaded Ukraine, and I was freaking out. But that actually helped us because the instability in the markets made our bonds look a better value because we were safe. So that in some ways it got us a better rate. And State Farm, by the way, bought most of our bonds when we refunded. They were in early. Normally they wait to the end and try to scoop everything up at a real rate, but they came in early and bought our bonds. So, for what it's worth. If we're good on that, we're going to move on just quickly. This is just an FYI. I worked with the Finance Committee, looking at some cash balance policies. It's still in the work, not really ready for prime time yet, but just know that we're working on those things that hopefully will come in front of the board in the next, policy review time. So
it will go to policy committee next,
right,
and then to the board.
Yeah. Just a couple things real quick. Our financial audit is underway. They've been here. They're just waiting now for our financial statements to be finished, and they'll audit them. A big portion of our audit is non-financial, it seems like anymore. They spend a lot of time with data from the high school on the College Credit Plus program. They look at food service. Food service is our biggest federal program now, so that was audited as such. And the one thing at the end of November, I need to send the auditors a list of all of our employees, anyone who's got paid by the district, of all those who completed fraud training. So if you haven't done it, I'm going to hunt you down. That's a warning. Right, Don? Yeah. Don has been a great partner in this. He's actually the one on top of it. But it'll be very irritating not to have a clean audit because people did not watch that 7-minute and 55-second video.
He knows it down to the second.
So, but it's the way that it is. There's other things that they're auditing. They're looking at our 5-year forecast. It's always been there, but they've really not paid a whole lot of attention. That's another subject for another day because of difficulty some districts have gotten into. Boards being surprised by negative cash balances and stuff like that. And any questions?
Thank you. Again, Tom, Randy, thank you for your reports. It's always, you want the information, there it is. It's an open book that you guys.
Mr. Benedict, before I forget, I'm sorry, I apologize. There's two items on my agenda on the fund transfer. I put the explanation in there just to get it. Last year, the board approved that transfer. And we found out that it wasn't completely right. The 200 fund cannot transfer to the general fund. To the permanent improvement fund. It can transfer to the general fund, and the general fund can transfer it to the permanent improvement fund, but it couldn't be done directly. So it ends up being the same. So I had to reverse that transfer and then put it in front of you again, and it's just legalese on that. So.
And for context, it's $1,000 that we're moving between funds here. So
why are there two? I kept going back and forth between them, and they looked exactly the same.
Okay.
7.3.
There's two steps.
General fund.
One from the 200 fund to the general fund, and then from the general fund to the permanent improvement fund.
we moved straight from
The 200 fund to the
myself.
permanent improvement
Student
fund.
activity to permanent improvement. It needs to come
I
from
was looking at the
general.
numbers and probably not the words, which is very unusual for me, so I couldn't see where the difference was, but I can see it now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the world of compliance.
Governmental fund accounting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So with that, item 7.5, I'm looking for a motion to approve agenda items 7.2 to 7.4.
So move.
Second?
Ms. Menke, Ms. Larimer? Roll call, please.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Ms. Rowland Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, financial items are approved. So that takes us to board committee reports. I don't know that we have anything else to talk about in the finance committee. I think Ms. Drury, nice job walking us through what we talked about there. Talk about curriculum committee real quick, Ms. Rowland Miller. I mean, I think a lot of it was what we talked about in the work session earlier
Yeah.
this month.
We covered the state report card at our October 2nd meeting, and we had reviewed that at our committee meeting, so nothing, you heard that. And I think the other piece is just the continued work of the teaching and learning department to bring consistency and kind of cooperation about standards. So there's a new committee looking at grading, and we're grateful for Dr. Burgoon, again, meeting with that group to make sure that grades are commonly provided across grades, across subject areas. And I also want to say that there also is consistency in professional skills, that what you get credit for in those professional skills is also standard. So, and you'll see in the report, they continue their work to provide consistency across the curriculum and the staff evaluations. So I think consistency was the word of the day outside of the state report card.
Thank you. Operations committee, who wants to lead that?
Okay. Laura, go ahead, I'll switch over. I had the other one going first.
Okay. Maintenance, it was just basically about the AC and heating controls in the Commodore and high school tech. There's a cybersecurity grant. It's federal, 3-year pilot, very competitive. And it basically has to do with the next generation firewall, which the device, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the device is like $128,000. And the E-rate cannot be used on it. And then, on top of that, it's like a $90,000 for a 3-year license on that. We also talked about Senate Bill 29, which is a student privacy on devices that we hand out. They're looking at readjusting it because if you go by what it says, you have to have, within 72 hours, the parent has to be contacted, why, what, when, who, how type of thing. And it could be for something as simple as a notice coming up, like a blocked website, but we have to go ahead and let the parents know that it happened. So there's a lot of unneeded contact going on there. But it has to do, going back to, I believe, healthcare issues is where it initially came from. Food service is doing great. The high school is doing like 300 pizzas a day with their new pizza oven. And overall, and this is astounding because your baseline for food service is if you can break even, you're golden. We are actually up 8,000 in the district for food service, which is unheard of. Transportation count week was 2 weeks ago. And then we also know that we have the 16 buses coming, and they do have LED lights. They're excited about that. We also did discuss some of the in lieu of transportation issues that the state is having, and that saga will continue.
No, I don't have anything to add. It was shall we say, a short meeting compared to what we normally have. But that SB 29 is another great example of the legislature overreacting and making it more difficult. And when they come out and say that their own bills were poorly written, it's really bad. So this is dumping a lot of cost, a lot of expense, and a lot of irritation, not only to our own team, but to parents too, because they get enough emails. And this is like, oh, let's do 50 times more than what you want. And it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So hopefully, I know this is one that OSBA was looking at and trying to get them to cool their shorts on, and they're still working on that one to try and get it revised.
Okay, thank you. I may clarify just one, clear up something or clarify. Food services running in the black being unheard of is a true statement for every place but probably Perrysburg.
Yes.
I'm trying to think the last time, I don't recall the last time it's been run in the red.
It's been a year during COVID.
That's what I thought, maybe COVID, but every other year it's, since we,
I went back and looked, compared to our similars, I looked at all our operational costs today, and, we're right, toward the top of the pack on food service, but we've hovered right above in the black, barely, and there's a couple years we dipped, so the last couple of years, and our best year, of course, was a year where everyone got free and reduced, right? We gave free lunches. That year was outstanding, and so as Ms. Mickey pointed out, we're not in those days, and every time a student buys a lunch, it's important because we're not doing free and reduced, right, or very few, and in fact it's slightly a problem, and that we had a little chat with Denise about. She's got to spend some of that money.
not taking anything away from your point, it is valid, just adding to it. Unheard of everywhere but Perrysburg, so thank you.
Again, I'm belaboring this. The more cafeterias you have, the harder it is to be in the black. The districts who tend to be in the black have high free and reduced and are single campuses because they only have one cafeteria staff.
I think the last scheduled committee we had was communications.
Communications, you probably saw the district-wide promotional video that was put out, and they did a really, really nice job of that. That was through MadApp, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we've been working with them on that. A lot of the stuff we talked about was trying to deal with the presentation and events, so that even though that looks like a short, gee whiz, they met for 5 minutes. No, we were there for quite a while, but it was more discussion than anything else as we're trying to figure out how to hone this all in, what we need to do.
And I'll just add the video that we also discussed. So there's the overall general one, and now if you go to the webpage, some of the video from that, it actually makes me, I will say, motion sick every time I look, but if you're not like me, it's really cool. Front page now. I can't look at it though. But if you scroll down on that page below the really cool video, there's also a video now that focuses just on the levy and providing that information. So I know, like Thursday night, there was a gentleman that was at the levy forum that really was just looking for the basics, like what's this gonna cost me? And that informational video is now down below that video, right?
Left.
If you keep going
Down a little
down.
more.
It's one of those four
That box
boxes.
right there.
Box, that
Bottom
lower
left.
left one is a levy informational video.
And the website, the new website is it's easy to navigate, it's very appealing, it's really nice.
It was a nice
Yeah,
update.
I really like the update. Much more user-friendly.
Yeah. And the layout is the same, it's just, I think, easier to navigate.
Which is very helpful.
I'm not trying to get you motion sickness.
No, I'm not looking.
She's not looking.
I can't
Here
swing,
you
I
go.
can't.
Come to the board meeting, take a Dramamine
I
before you
close my
come.
eyes during movies. IMAX is out.
You would not have liked my plane ride home, I guarantee you.
Bet you I wouldn't have.
It was pretty
Would have
rough.
had a lot of Dramamine in me, though.
All right, very good. Any other board committee reports? Okay, we'll keep moving through to the consent agenda. We have a consent agenda covering items 10 through 14. I'll call out specifically item 13.2 is again the approval of the CAP coordinator based off of the presentation that Mr. Schwartzmiller and Mr. Dodge gave us earlier in the meeting.
Did we get the board minutes updated? Did you say, okay. I make that motion to approve consent agenda then.
Can I have a second?
Second?
Ms. Rowland Miller and Ms. Larimer. And roll call.
Ms. Rowland Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Ms. Minke,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, consent agenda passes. That takes us into item 15, board discussion. Is there any new business that the board members would like to bring before us? Hearing none, we don't have any public participation tonight, so I will call us adjourned if there is no exception. We are adjourned.